Around 200 aircraft are likely to be grounded by the end of this fiscal year, as against more than 150 currently on the ground. This as per CAPA India's mid-year outlook. The grounded fleet is likely to include more than 90 aircraft just from Indigo. Air India is projected to have 25 to 30 grounded planes. Despite the supply chain risks to the Indian Airlines, CAPA expects the growth momentum to continue for the longer term, with greater focus on international operations. Danish is standing by now to take us through the details of CAPA India's outlook for India's aviation sector. Danish.
Well, what could not be good news for the Indian aviation sector, the industry is staring at over 200 grounded aircraft by the end of the current financial year. According to aviation consultancy firm CAPA India, due to several issues including supply chain constraints, the overall capacity of the Indian aviation sector could be impacted. Currently, between 160 to 163 aircraft are grounded, and this number is expected to cross the 200 mark by the end of FY24. According to CAPA's estimates, Indigo is likely to have over 90 grounded aircraft by the end of FY24, followed by Air India, which could see 25 to 30 grounded aircraft, 27 for SpiceJet, and the entire fleet of Gophers, which is 54 aircraft. CAPA also feels that this can lead to more problems for the airports, which could lead to the shortage of parking bays, as grounded aircraft will have to be parked at hangars and MRO facilities across the country. If the number of these groundings increase, then the parking challenge will become more acute. According to CAPA, supply chain issues are now at a critical level, and it could have a more deeper impact in comparison to what was anticipated earlier. Indigo and SpiceJet have started inducting aircraft on wet lease, and by the end of FY24, up to 30 wet lease aircraft are expected to be operational in India by the end of March 2024.
Well, Danish, many thanks for joining us. Well, to discuss the road ahead for India's aviation sector, we're now joined by Kinjal Shah, Vice President and Co-Group Head of Corporate Ratings at ICRA. Kinjal, many thanks for joining us. As Danish was pointing out there, the supply chain issues continue to be a considerable risk as far as the growth story for India's aviation sector is concerned. How do you read that, and how are you factoring in to the plans for next fiscal?
The supply chain issues definitely are a severe risk for the industry. But as far as FY24 goes, we already have seen a significant addition in capacity in the industry. So we have seen a stellar growth in the domestic air passenger traffic in the current year at around 19% for the 7 months, and we expect that overall FY24 will end at 8 to 13% growth for the domestic passenger traffic, resulting in total passenger traffic at around 150 to 155 million. However, if these remediation measures are not taken on time, then the Q1 of next year, that is Q1 of FY25, that would see a major impact on the domestic aviation industry, primarily because Q1 is the peak season for the aviation sector as well. So with additional aircraft going on ground in Q4 of FY24, that is starting January, because of the metal component related issues that have been highlighted by Pratt & Whiting, we would see at least Q4 seeing lean on supply, and if the remediation measures do not happen on time, that could flow into Q1 of FY25 as well, and that could probably result in a lot of supply demand imbalance for the industry then, and could result in a loss of domestic passenger traffic for the industry that otherwise the industry could have flown considering the peak demand during Q1. So remediation measures at the OEMs and both at the aircraft manufacturer and the engine would be the need of the hour.
Absolutely, that continues to be one of the big risks. Devesh Agarwal, aviation expert, also with us, the chief analyst at Bangalore Aviation. Devesh, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us. We were just talking about the supply chain issues, and CAPA now indicating that by March of next year, we could perhaps see over 200 aircraft being grounded. Now, just talking about the supply-demand mismatch, demand continues to be strong at this point in time. Capacity utilization, of course, is high, considering the fact that across airlines we've seen, disruption in terms of supply. What's the expectation in terms of growth? More importantly, what's the expectation in terms of fares?
Hi, Shri. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on the air with you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. See, Shri, there are many ways to address, yes, there's going to be a shortage of aircraft. Aircraft are going to be on the ground. See, there are many other ways, however, this situation can be mitigated. It is not necessarily just aircraft. You can increase the stress on the assets, means I use my aircraft today, say if I'm using my aircraft for 14 hours a day, I push the usage up to 18 hours a day. I'm effectively getting 4 hours per aircraft additional. So, that adds to 20% of capacity. These are some of the ways the airlines can mitigate. So similarly, they can turn around and, say, okay, I don't need to, I'm sorry, please don't take offense to this, but, somebody might say, I don't need to operate a Surat to Nainital flight, I'll make it via Delhi or I'll do something else. So the airlines will definitely optimize and work around this whole situation. I, in fact, however, would like somebody to shine a role on people in the aviation industry beyond the airlines. If you see, with the exception of Indigo, every other airline is losing money. Air India has lost $1.1 billion. I mean, that's with a B. Government is sitting in policy paralysis. The Go Air situation is literally, I wouldn't even use it like a ping pong match. It's a volleyball match. Government tries to throw the ball into the courts lobs it back at the government. Everything is in kind of a policy paralysis, logjam. Airports are not expanding. And hey, if airports find that they don't have the ability to expand, then let's get rid of this old tradition of only one airport within 150 kilometers. I mean, if we can have aviation airlines competing with each other, why can we not have airports competing with each other? So there are many ways to address this situation where I think it requires a bit of lateral thinking, and it requires the government to start focusing on where they really need to focus on, and that is policy.
Right. Let me bring Kapil into the conversation as well. It is the CAPA Aviation Outlook report that we are discussing. Kapil, great to have you. The dark cloud, of course, is the supply chain issue that is weighing on India's aviation sector and globally as well. But the silver lining, as per your report, demand continues to be robust. Passengers now flying back to pre-COVID levels. In fact, in some cases, better than pre-COVID levels as well. International plans continue to look strong, and financial health, a silver lining there as well.
Shreen, first of all, good evening. Good to be on your show after a long time. The purpose of this report was not to be alarmist. Whilst you look at the 200 number or 160 plus number right now and going up to 200 sounds alarmist, but this is something that the industry is aware of, so it's not new. So I just want to straightway start by saying that there was no purpose of being alarmist. We stated facts, and the industry is aware of its supply chain issues have impacted the industry not only in India, globally. So it's not new, it's a reality, and we must address it upfront. Otherwise, I think the industry is in a great shape, much better than what it was before, that the demand continues to be robust in spite of 150 aircraft on ground. We still have 15% plus domestic growth. We have almost about similar 15% plus in international. We are more or less aligned to what our annual guidance was, which was released in March. So I think the industry is in much better shape, excluding these issues which are beyond their control. Second part, which is very good, that apart from the demand being robust and it will continue to be robust, is that for the first time we have an airport infrastructure which is ahead of the demand. Is partly due to COVID. We have almost 500 million of airport capacity, which is likely to be commissioned from now on till another 12 months. Almost 500 million of airport capacity, 90,000 crore of capex has gone to it. So we have the second big factor which will help the industry is that the domestic airport capacity, the airport capacity is way ahead. We never had in the history that the airport capacity is ahead of demand. So that's another positive. So overall we look good. The demand is positive. The yields continue to be firm up in spite of such a large aircraft being on ground and more aircraft to be on ground. We still are 15% plus, so that's very positive. But the risks on supply chain are there. We can't change it. This is a reality, and we must confront it.
Yeah.
And as I keep saying, Shreen, we don't know when these supply chain issues get sorted out, whether it's a year or 2 years. and the industry is confronted to it. And I will add before I conclude my comments is that the industry has been quite resilient, as we have put it in our report, that people are wet leasing, people are extending leases, doing everything possible to ensure that the capacity guidance is maintained in a very difficult environment. Because even getting an older planes is not easy. There are not aircrafts available. Within that limitation, to continue to grow at 15% for domestic international, I think is quite notable.
Yeah, no, you're right. And in fact, airlines like Indigo, which have significantly been hit by factors related to Pratt & Whitney, are still holding their capacity guidance for the year. So as Kapil was pointing out, that is important to note. And again, this is not new. These are issues that the aviation industry has been confronted with over the last few months and will need to find ways to deal with this risk. But Kapil, before I get Devesh and Kinjal back into the conversation, we talked about some of the ways in which this risk is being mitigated, wet leases, etc., being one of them. What could the other options be that you anticipate airlines using as we move forward?
I think the good news is that the inductions, for example, that Indigo is getting is not impacted. So whatever deliveries they're getting is not impacted. It's with certain engine type, globally about 900, 600 could be impacted more. But the new deliveries are coming, and Air Asia or Air India Express is getting an aircraft every week. Air India is getting their wide bodies. Indigo is getting their new planes. It's with the older or the relatively older aircraft that have a challenge, and that was discovered off late, so nobody in the industry was aware that this is going to happen. So I think the new deliveries are going to come. The question is, what do you do in case the supply chain risks continue? I think the wet leasing is critical, extending of leases. That also is very challenging. You can't get an aircraft right now, and whatever wet leases you could get, because it's an off-season in Europe, and so there may be some aircraft available. As we get back to summer of next year, that may be challenging. But I think they're doing everything possible to ensure that the capacity guidance is maintained in spite of these structural challenges.
Yeah. Kinjal, just a quick word as far as profitability is concerned. We had a strong Q1, but do you see that as being an outlier, or do you believe that profitability will continue to remain a challenge, given what we just spoke of?
Traditionally, the industry itself has faced a lot of issues and gaining back to profitability. And yes, Q1 did super for the industry. A lot of factors which determine the profitability, ATF being one of the major factors, because around 30 to 40% of the total cost of the airlines is the ATF cost. Second is the depreciation of the INR against USD, because a lot of the fixed expenses, including the manpower, lease rentals, etc., are in INR terms, USD terms, and a lot of airlines also have forex debt. So while they would have some natural hedge by way of their international operations, but they get exposed to a lot of foreign currency output. So depreciation of the INR against USD is another cost. And third, as we are talking about the supply chain issues, while grounding of the airlines results in a lot of grounding costs, it would also result in increase in the overall lease cost for the airlines, because they have to bear the lease rentals for the fleet which is grounded, as well as they'll be paying higher lease for the aircraft that they'll be taking on wet lease, etc. So overall, the it could also increase with the demand increasing so much for the aircraft on wet lease. Overall lease rental expenses are increasing. Also, fuel efficiency also tends to be lower for these wet lease aircraft, because these are typically the older aircraft. So a combination of all these, definitely we're seeing a lot of increases for the airlines. Now, how the airlines are able to maintain their pricing power and show improvement in yield. While ATF in the current year has been benign, I think of 8 months that have passed by, we've seen a decline of around 16%. So to that extent, there has been some breather on cost for the airlines. But whether they continue to have pricing power, the yield, that will be the key determinant of the profitability for the airlines going forward.
Okay, Devesh, I'll give you 10 seconds to close. What are you going to be watching out for?
See, Shireen, just very quickly, Kapil made one statement about airport capacity. And I'll just use one very quick example. Bangalore has got 2 runways separated 1 mile apart, but guess what? They still don't have both the runways operating in parallel. So because they don't have enough air traffic controllers. That is something what I was trying to tell you. The government has to get involved in places where it can effect maximum change. The airlines will take care of themselves. SpiceJet ETC has got more than 100 aircraft on order. What is preventing them from inducting fleet? People have got orders. Aircraft are going to come in. Airlines are already used to operating in a competitive environment. So I'm not so concerned. And maybe, yes, fares might go up. So guess what? It's a little better for the airlines. Maybe they'll finally start seeing, you were mentioning, the airline industry needs to start attracting investment. And right now, when it's losing money hands over fist, how long is the investor going to remain patient?
Yes. Well, those are going to be 60. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment.